So the James Gunn Superman film is in theaters this week. We've already seen reactions to it. They're all mixed and well, mostly positive. And now we see a bold prediction right now. You see, James Gunn is being handed everything right now, full control of DCU, mainstream media backing that shouldn't have happened, that almost spelled bad news for him and stuff, where he should have kept his mouth shut, marketing problems that made audiences have mixed reactions to the film itself, and now there's a bold prediction out there that he may be still might end up with the Superman movie that opens lower than Man of Steel. Okay, so an article from thatparkplace.com tells how James Gunn's Superman could lose to Man of Steel in opening box office weekend, according to projections. This comes from Marvin Montanaro and stuff, and James Gunn picked the cast where James Gunn wrote the story, and also James Gunn obviously set the tone. And now the numbers are showing that Superman, the character that was meant to launch his entire universe, well, may or may not even clear a 12-year-old benchmark. Okay, so that may not just be a bad start for Superman, but it may or may not be a bad look for James Gunn either. Okay, so Box Office Pro just released the forecast for James Gunn's Superman. Okay, so they say that it's going to make between 115 million and 135 million. On the surface, that sounds okay, but the way they framed it sounds a bit misleading. You see, they're trying to say that it's in line with Man of Steel, but it's not. You see, Man of Steel didn't open at 160 million like they claimed. That's half the truth based on an outdated counting method that didn't include Thursday previews. Okay, so basically, the real opening number for Man of Steel starring Henry Cavill was $128.7 million. That included Thursday night opening. That was the full launch. Today's box office estimates always include Thursday previews. Okay, so it's been standard since 2018. So when they say the James Gunn film Superman could open at $115 million, that's already behind Man of Steel's full launch. And they seem to be cooking the numbers to make it look better than it actually is. Now, if James Gunn and the Superman movie somehow hits $135 million, that would technically be more than Man of Steel if you ignore inflation, but you just can't ignore inflation in 2025. It changes everything. Now, adjusted for inflation, Man of Steel's 2013 opening equals about 174.5 million today. That makes Superman by James Gunn look weak, even at the top end of projections, and it's assuming it even hits at the top end, which is not always guaranteed. Now, if Superman opens at 115 million, I mean, it may nearly be $60 million behind Superman is still when adjusted. Now, that's a big gap, not just a rounding error, and that's just a sign of a lower interest, lower turnout, and lower excitement. And we're not even talking about the fact that, James Gunn has modern advantages, such as social media hype, legacy media support, a new DCU slate, and even a giant promotional budget. You see, he has every tool that Snyder didn't, and apparently they're predicting that he may still fall short. Now, James Gunn is getting a clean slate from Warner Brothers. You see, they gave him control of the entire DC universe and stuff. They handed him Superman, and they said, fix it. And now we're seeing that we're supposed to believe that opening lower than a film from a failed franchise is a win. I mean, it sounds like a warning to me. You see, thanks to Warner Brothers, the Snyderverse collapsed under its own weight. It failed to build a consistent audience. Now, if James Gunn's Superman can't beat that, it tells you that this reboot is not necessarily working, okay? Now, Superman has always been, a tough character to get right, thanks to WB. And that's nothing new right there, but this is not some random indie movie. This is James Gunn making the movie Superman, and it's supposed to be the flagship. It's supposed to launch a whole new era of DC. And that means it has to do more than just break even. It has to prove that audiences actually care. And right now, the numbers say that they don't care as much as Warner Brothers hope. Okay, so if you let's just look at the context. Batman versus Superman opened at $166 million. Man, it still did 128.7 million. Even Justice League, with all its behind the scenes problems, opened at 93.8 million. And Superman Returns did $52.5 million back in 2006. Now, if James Gunn's Superman lands on the low end, it's barely ahead of the mess that it was with that was Justice League, and that's not where you want to be when you're trying to go ahead and launch the new universe. Okay. Now, look, I'm seeing all the reactions out there to the film itself. A lot of people saying that it's good. A lot of people saying it's bad, but everybody's saying it's not woke. On a plus side, I'm glad it's not woke and stuff, but that's the part where James Gunn should have just kept his mouth shut. Okay, it also shows how out of touch with the people that Hollywood is, where they let the mainstream media go ahead and take over and stuff. And the fact of the matter is, they forget one thing. The audiences always prove the mainstream media wrong. The fans always improve the mainstream media wrong. Okay. Now, there's no nostalgic excuse here. You see, Superman Returns had to follow Christopher Reeve. Justice League was patched together after, Snyder left. And this time is different. You see, James Gunn picked the cast. He shaped the story. He picked the tone as well. He even chose to lean into the golden age Smiley Boy Scout angle, okay? And that was his vision from the start. Now, if it didn't land, that's on him, not the fans, not the marketing, not the brand itself. But speaking of the marketing machine is running full throttle right now. They even have influencers praising it, giving media coverage, pushing positivity, and the studio pretending like the past doesn't exist, okay? But the audiences haven't forgotten either. You see, they actually remember the chaos and stuff. They remember, the Flash tanking. They remember Black Adam disappearing. And this film from James Gunn, the Superman is carrying all that baggage, whether we like it or not, okay? And then there's also the idea floating around that Superman doesn't need to break records. He needs to go ahead and be solid. Now, when James Gunn is being positioned as the guy to save the DCU, solid is not enough. If your Superman reboot struggles to actually match or beat a 2013 launch, you're not rebooting it. You're just recycling. Now, James Gunn, for this film, Superman can't just break even with history. It has to beat it. And so far, from these predictions, it look like it won't and stuff. Now, Warner Brothers might spin this as a win. They may say, well, technically it made more than, Man of Steel, but that only works if you ignore inflation and ignore the context. Now, seems to me it's a short-term narrative to keep the shareholders calm, but fans cannot actually see right through it. You see, they know that this Superman movie from James Gunn should be setting a new standard, not chasing an old one, okay? But we'll see how the Thursday numbers turn out. Well, not just Thursday numbers, the weekend box office numbers turn out and stuff to see that happening. But this isn't about hating James Gunn, okay? It's about holding him to the same standard as, that everyone else got, okay? Now, when Zack Snyder missed a benchmark, they pulled the rug right from under him, okay? When the other directors also stumbled, they got blamed. James Gunn basically is getting the benefit of the doubt, the full budget, and the media backup. Now, if his Superman underperforms, he can't blame anyone else. But at the same time, it all goes back to the comments that he made about this Superman film. James Gunn simply should have just kept his mouth shut, okay? But at the same time, this is a new era of DC, and this is the first test. Now, if it fails to beat the opening weekend of a movie from a failed universe that's taken away from the WB, the whole plan is shaky. Fans aren't going to buy into a shared universe if the first chapter doesn't excite them. Now, Superman is supposed to inspire confidence. James Gunn said that this film would be the heart of the new DCU. If the heart doesn't beat strong on day one, well, the body itself won't survive, okay? All eyes are on James Gunn right now. This is his moment, and he chose Superman as the launching pad. He made the tone hopeful. He said it would reflect truth and justice, but the truth is these box office projections don't care about, the intentions of any creator. They measure demand, all right? And if demand is not there, the message didn't land. Now, if Superman opens soft, the entire DCU is on thin ice before it even starts. Now, this is not just about money, it's actually about perception. If this James Gunn movie Superman opens behind Man of Steel in real world dollars, it actually undermines everything that this reboot is supposed to represent. It also signals that audiences are cautious and that they're also skeptical. Now, that may be, a new direction, or that's not a fresh start where they promise, and if Warner Brothers thinks that won't bleed into future projects, well, it seems to me that it may be delusional. Now, honestly, you can't build a cinematic universe on excuses. You can't just prop up, a Superman film with media spin. James Gunn has every advantage. If this Superman stumbles out of the gate, it's not because of fatigue or bias or even bad luck. It's because the audiences didn't bite. And if that happens, the reboot is already in trouble before it even starts to get moving. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Be sure to smash that like button, share the video, follow across social media, join my Discord server, subscribe to the channel, turn on that bell for future uploads notifications, and I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, peace.